This is the Aces Up Your Sleeve podcast, and we're the aces up your sleeve in relationships, from romantic to workplace, parental to platonic, your relationship with yourself, and everything in between. Let us, two autistic, aspect, kinky therapists, be your secret weapon in neurodivergent life.
And here's your disclaimer. This is not therapy or therapeutic advice, and we're not on the clock. What you'll hear are our thoughts on different topics, what we might do in your shoes, and how we've supported others through similar situations. Hello, and welcome to the Aces Up Your Sleeve podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina.
Your host, Cade.
And we're super excited. It's season 2. Oh my God, people actually see my little dance.
Yeah, they can see your dance now. They can see the background, like the art stuff you talk about.
Woohoo! Cool. That's very exciting.
Yeah, welcome to season 2, everybody, of the Aces Up Your Sleeve podcast. We're excited to be here in video format.
Yes, we're trying something new and hoping that people will enjoy that. I'm super expressive in my face, so for those of you who decide to watch the video, you'll see that. For those of you who are like, fuck a video, I don't care, that's totally fine. We are going to keep on uploading as audio to the places that you get audio podcasts, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and maybe this will mean instead of just quote posts, you'll also see some clips from us so that you'll know what we're talking about. We'd love to have you join in the conversations if you see any going on, or if you want to start one yourself, that'd be cool too.
Ooh, indeed. Yeah, so we're super excited. We're trying some new stuff out for season 2, and always open to feedback, and so that we can try some new stuff out. Just trying to make sure that we're making this something that's actually useful and like helpful. So far, a lot of the feedback that we've gotten is really good, and that it is useful and helpful, and it feels good to be able to offer people like, oh, I actually have a resource for that. So yeah,
we're planning to still answer questions, so that'll be staying the same. You don't have to worry too much about content changing. We are starting something a little different right now, which is you're with us in a mini series. We're doing a 3-part series on teens. We're going to be doing this, it's called the GEMS Neurodiversity Summit, which is a virtual summit. It'll be focused on therapists working with autistic and ADHD teens. GEMS is something that Sabrina and I came up with our friend Jamie, if you remember Jamie Roberts from an episode last season on dating. And GEMS stands for Growth, Empowerment, Meaning, and Support, and that's exactly what you'll find at our one-day summit with Jamie over at NeuroPebble. So if you want to hit pause now to go check it out, the URL is neuropebble.com/gems-summit. It'll also be in the show notes, and the early bird tickets are on sale right now, so we'd love to see you there if you're a therapist or mental health professional. We're going to share more details in the next 2 episodes, but for now, you can totally go to your calendar and mark May 16th, 2026 as reserved for the virtual GEMS Teen Summit.
Yay! We are focused on teens, and Jamie and Cade and I all have worked with teens a lot, and really, really love working with that population, and also find that it can be a difficult population for some people, and not enough people, in my opinion, work with teens. Like, it's especially hard when I have a teen client who, like, especially when I was working in IOP, I would need to like refer them out after they were done, and nobody worked with teens, especially not neurodivergent teens. Everyone was working with neurodivergent adults and all of these things, and teens do pose their own challenges, but they're so rewarding to work with and so great. And so we wanted to make a whole summit to help people actually work with teens, because it's so needed.
Yeah, and like reinvigorate those of us who do enjoy that work, because there are a lot of layers to it, and it is a little more complex than working with an adult.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot with teen work, and then hopefully we'll have a couple different mini-series. So first 3 episodes, including this one, you're going to hear about teens. Today we're talking about success during the teen years and what that looks like and how to help teens be successful. So whether you're a teen yourself or an adult, hopefully there'll be some good takeaways.
Yeah. Ugh. The word success is like already so
it
much.
It has so many connotations and layers. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, ready to dive in?
Yeah. Our first one here, our first question is, I'm writing to you two on behalf of one of my students. I'm a sophomore English teacher, and I have a student who is very bright but barely talks and does not participate in class discussions. Though he has an Individualized Education Plan, or IEP, that lists him as autistic, his only accommodations are 1. Getting breaks as needed during class, and 2. Extended test-taking time. Are there other ways I can support him in class? Do you two have any words of encouragement for him and students like him?
Yeah. And those are such like common accommodations, but they're like there's a real limit to how helpful they can be. And especially if the student's not engaging that much, like it makes me wonder if there's something challenging about engaging in a way that would also be challenging to take a break if needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I was a teen, I didn't engage a ton in class because I didn't see the point really. Like, okay, I'm learning the material and I don't I don't really want
That's
to
all I
give my
need.
feedback. Yeah, I wasn't big on public speaking, still not huge on it. I get pretty nervous, but especially then.
So glad you have a podcast, Kate.
Yeah, love it. But I do like sharing info, so that, at least would meet that need. And I wonder if this teen feels similarly, like, well, why do I need to contribute in this specific way? I'm already learning the information.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is one of those things. So I'm the opposite. As anyone who's ever engaged with me in any meaningful way will tell you that like I am going to engage. I have never been the one who does not participate. I am over participatory. Like I was the student who would get the like, does anyone except for Sabrina have an answer to this? Which we were just talking about last night. But so that wasn't my experience. And I think because of that, I've reflected a lot on like the dynamic because there would always be this like, well, nobody else is speaking up. And so I don't know why it's my responsibility to not speak up when they're like not choosing to. And it made me think a lot about like, why is it more valued to participate in class discussions? Like,
Yeah.
why is it that gets to be something that we like somehow understand success through? Why is it that we focus on that as a measure of what a student is learning and like them being, academically well or whatever, right? Because yeah, like I think a lot of students don't see a point to it. It makes them anxious. It's not how they learn well. Like that's the things. It's how I learn well. I learn well by having the discussion. But for a lot of students, having the discussion makes it more confusing or like more difficult to process or confuses what they read in the book, like all these different things. And so I don't know. I do wonder if there is some amount of like mindset shift for you as the teacher of like, what am I expecting? What is the outcome that I'm wanting from this student's participation in class? And is it aligned with what they need, want, like all of those things?
Yeah, I noticed grade status is not mentioned here, so I don't know if he's failing, if he's doing well. You say he's very bright. If participation points are a thing that you use in your grade books, I wonder if that might be something you could waive. That might need to go on his IEP, but waiving that discussion piece, or if that's not allowed for some reason, perhaps allowing the discussion or participation to be that, if he's a writer, maybe he jots down a few sentences that he would have said but wasn't up to saying. You also say he barely talks, so I wonder if talking is not even his preferred form of communication.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point too. Like, what one of the things that I used to do when I was running groups, which is different than like teaching in the classroom, but any of my like group members was always welcome to write down their check-in or like any contribution that they wanted to offer and pass it to any staff member and have that staff member read it. And either attribute it to them or not. Like obviously if you saw me slide this over and then I read it immediately, like there some things happen there. But that like I often was able to get a lot more participation when offering multimodal communication, right? And so like, yeah, you can write the thing and send it like and pass it to me, or like when you're running a virtual group, right? Like type it just to me and then I'll read it out. Same thing with questions. Even like now I offer that to clinicians. It's like, if you have a question in our big staff meeting, but you don't want to say it out loud, you're more than welcome to type it privately to me and I will read it out as a basically anonymous question. And so some of that does depend on like, is he uncomfortable with it being attributed to him? Is he uncomfortable just using his voice because that's not how he communicates? Is he uncomfortable at all? Or is it just a like completely neutral, this is not what I want to be doing, how I engage with this, all of those things. But trying to see like what might other options be that you could offer him and work in collaboration with him to see if he is interested in contributing more, what could that look like?
Great ideas. I think that also leads in a little bit to that last part of, do you have any words of encouragement? You're not always going to have to do participation points.
Oh my God.
You're
really
not always going to have to talk in class, or there will be ways in life where you can hopefully tailor where and how you participate and opt out of those types of situations or get the accommodations you need to be able to get out.
And participation will look really different, is part of it too, right? It's like, so I work in a group practice and we have folks who like see their caseload numbers, are never in the chats, don't come to the in-person events, have their outside of work lives that they want to prioritize and keep very separate. That is still participatory. You're seeing your numbers, you're doing your stuff. Then we have folks who are like, I'm in the chat, like this is me, right? I'm in the chat. Let's talk. Let's have fun. Let's send pictures of QuiltCon, which I just got back from. Like all of this kind of stuff. And like that is also participatory, but both are taken as participation. Like neither one is more highly valued than the other. And I think that that net gets wider as you become an adult. People stop expecting participation to mean like be in a space specifically and speak.
Yeah. I think as you become an adult too, even if you've got people who keep pushing those standards, you have more autonomy to get out and leave and do something different. If you start a job and they're like, yeah, staff meetings every Friday, mandatory, no accommodations, we're not gonna, you're gonna have to present or answer our icebreaker question or whatever, time to look for a different job. Like, job market's tough right now, but that would be my first step is, okay, I'm gonna have to get out of here if there's really no wiggle room and I'm not someone who likes to talk or doesn't talk. That might be another thing where we just don't have enough content in this question to know, but maybe this is someone who is generally non-speaking and the reason he's barely talking is because people are forcing him to talk.
Yeah. And I also think like in terms of words of encouragement, your teacher can clearly tell that you're very bright regardless of your engagement. So like I don't think that you're doing anything wrong. If you would find it helpful to have it documented so that other teachers in the future who might not be as understanding and kind as the teacher who wrote in here, right? Like if that would be helpful to you, I think this is a great time to work with this teacher and figure out like, okay, do I want the accommodation where like I don't need like my participation points can come from somewhere else or like don't count in the same way or whatever. Do I want an accommodation of like I can use written communication and that counts as participation, all these different things, and like kind of see what works well because it seems like you have a very understanding teacher here. And sometimes having those things written down before you run into someone who's not as accommodating can be helpful. But otherwise, it's clear that people can tell that you're bright and that you are engaged, even if you're not participating in a verbal way. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, and I wonder too, the teacher asking this question, could you write a letter of recommendation? Because I think as someone who is pretty shy around most teachers, it's tough to connect. And then in college, it's like, oh, I need this letter. Who even knows me well enough to write that? Who do I even ask? So when you're asking, are there other ways I can support him in class? That extends outside of class, but that might be really useful for him in the future. And in
Yeah.
class, I would also say look for bullies. I'm not hearing that that's the reason he's quiet, but maybe, and it
Yeah.
may not be
Doesn't hurt to
happening
look.
in your, yeah, might not be happening in your class. It might be right before in the hall or in a different class, but sometimes that can make us be pretty quiet too when we feel like we're just going to get berated or chastised for whatever we talk about.
Also, to that point, this is a little bit of a conversation to have directly with him. Like,
Yeah.
as the teacher, to like find a way to sit down and say basically what you said to us here, but essentially, like, do you already feel supported in the class? Because he might be like, I feel totally supported. I'm good. I don't want to change anything about how anything is going. And then, like, you're stressed out for nothing. And so seeking clarity on that is usually a first step for me is like, does this person want more support? Do they feel that they need it? If I think that they need support, like that's about my goals for them. What are their goals for them? And kind of going in and sitting down with, okay, we need to figure out, like, I need to understand actually this person's experience and then start making plans. It doesn't work to start making plans without a conversation with the student. And again, in the mode that works well for them. So maybe it's an email conversation or a conversation with parents present if that makes it easier for them to open up. Like my mother, as much as we had a shitty relationship, she came with me to like every appointment and things outside of therapy, like until I was like 19. It just made it easier for me. It still makes it easier for me to like have someone I know with me in social situations, even though I'm very extroverted. And so like that might be something worth looking into is like when you have the conversation of what does he need, make sure that he has the things he needs to have that conversation.
Yeah, I love the idea about maybe emailing it if there's like a over here we usually have something called Power School, but like something you can
Mm,
log into that the student can also log into to type, or even, here's a note at the end of class that encourages him to write back to you and drop off a note. Yeah, that sounds great. And I also, in the show notes, I will put a list of school accommodations that a different therapist and I pulled together. It's not an exhaustive list. It's not like every single accommodation that exists, but it is, here are a lot of things that we've personally gotten approved for clients in the past. So you can kind of have a jumping off point of, well, some school districts allow this.
yeah, I would also say what I've seen a lot when I talk to students about accommodations is that like this is not something that we depict in TV or movies or like media. And so they don't have any idea what's possible. Right. And so there's a real issue and sometimes therapists don't either. Sometimes teachers don't, I'm sure, like that this idea of like you're asking me what I want, but I don't know what's here, right? It'd be like going to a completely different country and being like, okay, what food do you want? Well, I don't know what the
What are the
options are.
options?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I do think that trying to have in your head both like an actual list, but also like, okay, let's take reality out of the room,
Mhm.
right? I just want to know what are the hardest parts of your day and then kind of work backwards, right? So if the
I like
hardest
that.
part of his day is walking up the stairs to his class, okay, is there an elevator key he can have? Oh, well, I thought that was only for physically disabled students. And I don't know that it makes any sense for me to have it. That's not like part of it, right? Like, that's what the IEP meeting is for, is to determine like what is a reasonable accommodation, right? But the whole point of like engaging in a conversation before that with the student is like dream big. What in your wildest fantasy would change about school to make it more doable for you?
Yeah.
Well, it would be completely online. Well, I would get to just work one on one with a teacher. Well, I would have complete flexibility in when I turn things in. I would be able to listen to my music during downtime when the teacher's not lecturing because I get so distracted. Like all of these different things that feel very impossible sometimes might not be, but you don't know if you don't try.
Yeah. I think that's where it helps too to know the student's rights, whether you are that student or you're their guardian or you're their teacher. Because I do find that sometimes I go with clients to those meetings and someone in the room that works at the school will start saying, well, you don't really need well, those are for kids who are failing, or those are only for kids who blah, blah, blah. Or if you would just show up, you'd be fine, so we're not giving you any of these accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to know what their rights are and have somebody in that room to stand up for them, or for the teen to feel empowered to stand up for themselves, because otherwise some of those really creative accommodations that are actually possible might get shot down.
Yeah, I actually just followed, and I'll see if I can find them to put in the show notes, but an Instagram account that, like, the content that this person makes is recordings of their responses in IEP meetings, and that are like, it sounds like you have predetermined this thing, and that's not allowed in IEP meetings. You cannot predetermine something without parent input. And so I'm gonna need us to whatever. And then, like, in the comments of that particular video, someone had asked, like, how can I tell if someone has predetermined something? And they, like, there's just a list of, like, common phrases that you might hear that can raise that flag for you to say, like, well, that's now, like, essentially you've predetermined it. And some of them are like, well, that's not allowed, or like, that's not been signed off on, or those types of things that, like, they essentially are not allowed to do that. That's not how IEP meetings work. And so I'll try to find that and put it in the show notes, because, like, that's a really big thing. IEP meetings are things that, like, people are trained in how to run these, right? Like, there are people who, like, learn the ins and outs of the laws and the codes and, like, the IDEA and the ADA and, like, all of these things, that there are specific protections, but if you don't know, they can't protect you.
Yeah.
So it's definitely important to, like, either learn them or find someone who has learned them and, like, bring them with you.
In Washington, and I'm sure in other areas too, I just don't know the name of the organization, but here in Washington we have something called PAVE, which stands for Partnerships for Action, Voices for Empowerment, and almost all of the staff are either the teens grown to adults or the guardians of kids who have been through IEP 504 plan, really tough scenarios and battles usually with the schools, and they will go with you for free to those meetings and prep with you for free beforehand, especially if they can't go with you, so that you all are on the same page as you get there and really can advocate for certain accommodations, certain protections.
Yeah, exactly. So that also might be, like, again, just checking in with, like, does the family, both the student and the parents, feel like they were heard at the IEP meeting? Do they need a review? Like, all of these different things. I don't know a huge amount about the ins and outs of specific IEPs. Though I found my old one that I didn't even know that I was on, like, in elementary school. And, like, those things are reviewed not infrequently, right? Like, and to my understanding, you can request a review. And so I think one of the things that you can do for both this student and just all of your students is, like, really up your knowledge on what the rights are, or at least the very, like, limits of, you know, did you feel heard there? Okay, well, I don't know all of it, but I do know that you can request a review and you can have this type of person with you, and here are some referrals to that type of person.
Yeah. I mean, already I will applaud the person who asked the question. You're a teacher who knows what's on his accommodation list.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be the standard that every staff member that comes into contact with a kid will have read their full IEP 504. I find that almost never happens, and that even if it gets read, they expect the kid to prompt the supports, which is not always possible either, especially if you're describing someone who really isn't talking too much.
Right. Well, and that's what I meant by, like, taking breaks as needed. Like, is that something that, like, would you prompting it be more helpful? Like, maybe this kiddo could use a break, but, like, doesn't want to speak, or, like, whatever their thing is, right? And, like, would it be more helpful if you were to, every 15 or 30 minutes, like, hey, how you doing? Break? Like, even if it's hand signals, that is what I used a lot with IOP, was like a lot of, like, hand, I mean, I just did it for video, but for listeners, I just did, like, a thumbs up and a little, like, wiggly hand, like, just kind of being able to discreetly have a bit of a conversation. And so, like, having a hand signal for break, right? And like just that you can very subtly like to that one student and they can be like yes with their thumbs up or like no or like, and you can be like break, and you can like kind of encourage them to go take one. And then here's the nice part, if they step outside and they don't need the break, they can always come back in. But if they step outside and realize, oh shit, this break is so helpful, thank Jesus, then they can go take their break and like nothing is hurt.
Yeah, and if they're really giving you the signal of like, no, I don't need one, all right, we drop it, we leave it be.
Yeah,
That's cool.
exactly.
I think the hard part is that there's like stigma around those accommodations. That's the most pushback I get from teens.
So much.
Yeah, they don't want to be different than their peers and singled out even more than maybe they already are. So if
many of them don't feel like they deserve it in some way, like, or that it gives them like special treatment, and that like special treatment is bad. Thanks, America.
I know. And so the hand signal, or you know, even like this little note card that's going to be kept on his desk, and if he needs a break, he just flips it over. So when you're like, where the heck did he go? And you go over, you see it, you're like, oh, he's on his break.
Blue. Yeah. Time to go. Yeah. So
I hope that helps. I mean, it without more context, you could have a kid who just isn't the talking type, or you could have a kid who has some barriers to being able to participate in that way because of environmental things, social things.
Yeah, I will say, like, I always start with like asking myself, why is it that I want this child to do this thing? Right. And it might be like, maybe you've known this student since they were a freshman, and you know that they used to participate more or in class discussions directly and verbally, and that's what you're aiming to get back. Right. So I don't know all of your context, but I do think just investigating, like, why is this important to me? What am I seeking out of this? Before going and like poking at the person who it seems like is maybe doing fine in class could be helpful.
And I do wonder if maybe your question was prompted by something in that IEP, like an IEP goal that says kid will talk X amount of time in class or something, or participate X amount verbally in a discussion. Those are really tough. Yeah, those are really tough for me. I would look at maybe even having those goals changed if they're in there, and he does not want those in there.
It is one of the more challenging things about IEPs and like supporting students with like the IEP and 504 thing, is that like a lot of them almost require very ableist language and goals that like are really shitty. And so yeah, figuring out how to kind of skirt that, because like that's the issue, right? Is like they're very official documents that have kind of official ways that people are trained to write them. And so yeah, seeing if, again, following creators who work a lot with IEPs. I'm thinking like Destiny Huff is a Black autistic advocate for like school accommodations and things. You know, following people who are going to help teach you how to recognize a strength-based goal and a goal that is affirming and all of those things, versus like goals that are out of line that you can challenge and say like, that's not like, this goal doesn't align with anything reasonable.
And how does he define success? I think that's when I'm working with teens, that's the biggest thing. It doesn't really, it matters, but it doesn't really matter what the guardians want their goals to be. It matters more what that.
Hold on.
Like it matters in that then I know how to communicate what we're doing to the guardians. If your goal is for your kid to never have a meltdown, and the teen's goal is to be happy, those aren't against each other, you know?
I agree with that. I guess for me, like, the parent's goal matters. Okay, what I'm hearing from you is like, the parent goal matters in so much as the parent has control over the teen and so needs to be kept somewhat appeased.
And sometimes it's possible to knock out both goals. I mean, if the teen's like, yeah, I don't really care about my meltdowns, I just want to be happier. Usually if we're working on happiness, those meltdowns are going to decrease a bit.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Like, sometimes they can go hand in hand. We can figure it out together.
Yeah.
Now, there are guardians who come in with goals that are just like, my
Fix
goal
my
is
kid.
for my 13-year-old to move out. I'm sick of him. Okay, well, that's not happening. So I hear what's under that goal, though, and maybe we can, you know, work towards that by doing whatever this 13-year-old actually wants to do. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for real. Fair enough.
But that is a big thing when we're talking success. How does the teen define it? So for this next question that we got asked, it says, hi, I desperately need to make money to afford my own things. I'm 17 with a driver's license, but I'm
Woo.
shy and not good at masking. What jobs can I do? Who could hire me?
I love this question. Who could hire me is such a good, like, 17-year-old framing of that, you know?
Yep. I mean, I'm hearing super motivated to afford their own things. 17 with a driver's license, so they've got that, which is on a lot of job descriptions, like requirements. They like
Which it's,
a
like, not
driver's
supposed to
license.
be. Like, it's not
Really?
supposed to be. Yeah, it's not supposed to be because, like, there are other ways to get places besides driving. And
Yeah.
so, like here, we don't have a great public transport system, but especially if you're in one of the main, so, like, the general area where I live, or here, even better, I went to school at UNC. And so, like, UNC, the whole, like, really town of Chapel Hill has a free bus system. So it doesn't matter if I have a driver's license or can drive, I can get to where I'm going. So unless the job itself includes me needing to drive things places like Uber or Lyft, or, you know what I mean? Like, very specifically, like, I have to drive things from place to place. As long as I can get to my job on time and do the things that I need to in a timely way, you're not really supposed to be able to, like, tell someone that they can't have a job because they don't have a car.
Yeah, like reliable transportation is one thing, and
Reliable
actually driving
transportation
is different.
is the language. Yep, exactly. So, yes, it is, like, people don't do it that way, but they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, driver's license, depending on the roles, I wonder, are there certain types of delivery you could do? If you're shy, there are definitely some delivery things where really you're not talking much. Maybe they sign a thing and you leave, and there's all
And
types of delivery.
a lot of people have opted, especially for like Uber Eats or whatever, to do leave it at my door. And they don't want to talk to you just as much as you don't want to talk to them. So I feel like, that might be worth looking into. I think the issue here is, like, what jobs can I do? Fucking anything. Anything that'll let you under 18, or under 18. So I would focus more on what jobs do you want to do? What are you interested in? I really enjoyed when I was younger, like, working at places where I would get an employee discount for the thing. So, like, I worked at Michael's for a little bit. I worked at a paint it yourself pottery shop for some time. And I love pottery. And so, like, that was really fun because I got to, like, especially when we were slow, like during the school day or whatever, because I was in college at the time. And so, like, the middle of a Wednesday, cool. I'm just going to sit here and, like, either paint my own thing or an example for the shelf. So I don't have to pay for it even, like, it's just there. Or, like, do my own clay projects or whatever other artistic thing. And so that really helped me to, like, again, it was pretty slow during that time. Now, it wasn't always slow, but it really helped me to also just be able to self-soothe throughout the whole day of my job because I was doing a thing I enjoyed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would wonder, for this person asking, what sort of things do you enjoy? Because then we could tailor some of the suggestions, but it's true. Like, you can do just about anything. What will be probably the barriers where you say you're shy. I would hate to put you in roles right away, like, just because you would love to do it in your mind, it might pan out differently in person.
It's true.
So, as what was I? Yeah, I was still in high school. I did some dishwashing, which was not too bad because I knew someone else who was in the kitchen. That was a good role for a shy person. You're in the back, you're just working with dishes. Yeah, you occasionally talk to the other, like, kitchen staff or maybe a server, but not too much. But if you hate loud noises, having your hands in the water,
I
sensory
would not be a
things.
good dishwasher.
Yeah.
A, because I want to talk to everybody, but also B, because I can't stand the water, and it's particularly, like, loud, sudden noises. They're surprising noises. And I really struggle. I even struggle just with, like, my partner doing dishes, like, at the end of the night. Like, they'll, like, move something harshly, and I'm like, ah, I'm like, why did you do that to me? Yeah, I will say my brother was a dishwasher for some time and like literally would just put his headphones in and like listen to his music or talk on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's
And
a
really
kitchen that
enjoyed that.
lets you do that, that might take care of some of that noise. I also find it's different if I'm the one making the noise versus having to hear it. So some of the
Absolutely.
cooking things that happened were like, ugh, but the dishes not so bad. It also, helped that I limited it to part-time work. It was not like I was there every single day. It was probably less than 8 hours a week.
Yeah.
But if you're saying you desperately need to make a lot of money and you hated sensory stuff, I would not. I would not
Yeah.
suggest that.
I also think so it depends a little bit on if you're still in school. But later shifted things, Night Stalker, or like when I worked at Michael's, there was a group of people who would just kind of work really, really early, squirrely in the morning, and come in and like take the boxes of stuff that were delivered off off the truck and put them in the back, and then we'd take them from the back and put them up on the shelves and stuff throughout the day. But like depending on your physical capacity. And if you're in school, because if you are, then that probably the timing of that might work out if you're a morning person. But that was a very you engage with like the 4 other people on your team or whatever, and that's kind of it. A good friend of mine also is like not super hugely a people person, and has worked at like kind of big box stores, but just in the back and like the logistics side of things, where it's like, okay, I'm shy and it's uncomfortable at first, but once I get to know this little group of people that I engage with, I'm fine. And I only have to engage with this little group of people. I'm not ever out like engaging on the floor.
Absolutely. I think the inventory and stocking type roles can be really good for that because then you just have to get to know a couple coworkers, maybe your boss. The things where that you get to do like the pricing stickers, that can be pretty good too. Sometimes that is tied into those stocking roles. Even the fitting rooms, like you are talking to more people, but you get a script. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a few sentences and then you get them in the room and then a few sentences maybe at the end and you put stuff back. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything on their way out because they just hand you the thing and walk off.
Yeah, especially for those bigger box stores. I think the one thing to be mindful of with the bigger box stores is that sometimes they will try to pull you from somewhere to somewhere. So like, hey, when I was at Michael's, I was in the framing department. They're like, hey, there's no one here for frames, so go stock the shelves. And that's a much more like customer engagey part. Like frames was engagey in like you take the orders, but then a lot of the day was really just in the back putting the frames together. And so like, and again, like taking the order was pretty stock standard a little bit. But they would just pull you into, hey, this other role. And so that is something to be mindful of with those bigger stores.
It's a good point. Yeah. And something else that comes to mind too is you could also do stocking at like a library. They have
Mm-hmm.
I think they call them library pages who put the books back and kind of organize the check-ins and check-outs, and that's something you could do. If you're big on animals, like maybe Petco, PetSmart, like depending on what your interests are that will actually make work less miserable, I
Mm-hmm.
would I would try to find those types of things. And then also janitorial work is pretty a little bit solo. Sometimes you have somebody else you're working alongside, but hotels, hospitals,
Office buildings,
yeah, schools, school
schools.
districts, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot of those, um, I think like the pretty classic like pizza delivery driver, like you're gonna engage, and again they might pull you onto like cashier or something, but like for just a straight up driver, so many people are like, just drop that shit in my house. I don't want to talk to you. Because everything now you prepay. Like, I mean, maybe some
Maybe
of the
they can do
specific
a
pizza
tip.
ones, if you order through them, they still offer cash, but like I most people, to my knowledge,
Yeah,
do. Yeah, the card stuff.
I think so. The only thing I don't know about delivery drivers, sometimes some of the places will be like it has to be 18 and up for some sort of
Mm,
liability thing. But worth checking in your area, and maybe a local shop would be more apt to hire you on than something that's a chain with certain standards of whatever because of whatever.
yeah, I do think that's another part, right? Is like, can it be something local, even if that's like helping like an individual human person out with something that they could hire you for, or like you do maybe through an agency that like home care helper might be something worthwhile to look into, depending again on like, yes, you're shy and you're not good at masking. You might be able to make a connection with one, like a person, like, and it might suck because you might have to kind of bounce a little bit, but like, then your primary work is supporting them in whatever things. They're always looking for like younger, more physically abled people. So if that is you, that could be possibly worthwhile.
Other things that come to mind too are like yard work, landscaping type stuff. If you've got those skills or could pick those skills up, there's a little back and forth maybe through an app like Nextdoor or your local Facebook group to find some people.
TaskRabbit,
yeah, TaskRabbit. Yeah. You could also go old school and hang up flyers and, whatever you want to do. And then you show up and they say, here's the yard, here's what I want done. And they usually leave you alone for an hour, 2 hours, however long it takes. And then you knock on the door and say, I'm all done. And they come out and look and say, looks great, and pay you. Or they say, hey, could you do this before you wrap up? It is interaction, but if you're not good at masking, you can make whatever faces you want to make and stim however you want to stim out in the yard. And yeah. And other than that, I wonder too about humane society type stuff, like pet shelters. Are you less shy around animals maybe? Dog walker, dog sitter, pet sitter in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually my good friend used to like mow our lawn when we had like a big old yard. And like he did that for a lot of people, like that was his job. And like I wouldn't even know he was there. Like he just needed to get into the yard, which was accessible from the front, and do it. And like literally, like he would do it. Like I would be in my office upstairs at the old house and like see him out the window and like, oh shit, when did you get here? And then he'd leave and I would shoot him a PayPal and be done. And so, that might be, especially like if your parents have friends who might need lawn care, that they would rather like, pay a local to do that if you have the equipment and physical ability. I think that's one of the harder parts, is that like a lot of good solo work is physical work.
Yeah.
And so I think it is more challenging if you have less physical capacity. And that is going to be something more like maybe computer based. Or I'm trying to think of those like you wouldn't want to be like a call center person or support, but like something where you basically like test things in an environment and then offer it back. You know what I mean?
Oh, like a beta tester. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And absolutely, the computer-based skills, if you've got those, you could do things like data input or data entry. Those would be terms to search. Sometimes you can even do that at home without having to go into an office. You could offer transcription if you've got really good ears and like to type what you're hearing. Social media marketing. I know in our like therapist friend group, we're always like, who do we go to help us learn how to do this? And even if you don't have a degree in it, you could offer to help businesses like, I'll do X amount of posts on these however many platforms a week, and here's my personal social media or one that I've helped before, or here's like a little portfolio of the graphics that I could make, and just make up a couple as if you were going to provide it to them.
Especially for businesses that already have a pretty good marketing strategy and they just want someone to literally sit there and like do the effort of preparing the post. Maybe they even have like I'm thinking like, there's a world in which at some point like we have the capacity to take on somebody to like not even make the actual Canva like images, but just set the post up. You know what I mean? Like, because that takes time, like going through and setting up the episode in Patreon, setting up the episode in Buzzsprout, setting up the episode artwork, and like putting it in each place and like all of that. It's fine work, but it's not nothing. And like people who are running bigger things than we are, may want help with that.
Yeah, and you could even, set yourself up on Fiverr.com and maybe ask a couple people to be your test client, and you'll do it for free. And if they could go review you, who knows? They also might be like, "No, let me pay you. Your rates are reasonable. Like, let's do it."
And people are going to expect someone working with computers to be a little weirder. I'm sorry, it's just true. People expect, I talk to people all day long, and people expect people who are working in computer-based jobs to just engage a little bit differently, be a little bit quieter, be a little bit shyer. Not all of those people are, but it's way more normed.
Yeah.
So hopefully that would at least help your shyness or your worry.
Yeah. Yeah, those folks hopefully wouldn't be judging you to whatever standard you're concerned that they might be.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our first teen of the three-parters, first teen episode. We're going to go record Upping the Ante, which is, of course, our exclusive bonus content for Patreon. But you might notice some changes. We are going to shift around how people can access it. We heard the feedback. It's a lot of extra clicks. It's tough to remember to get over there to listen.
I certainly never remember to look at my Patreon stuff, what I subscribe to.
I'm with you. I have to make a day of it. Let me go check out and just scroll through everything, see what I've missed over the last week or month.
Yep.
But hopefully this will streamline how you can access everything. It should be now its own private podcast, so you can add it to your usual streaming apps and really easily just listen.
Yeah. And we'd love feedback on how that goes as well. We're trying it out through Patreon and all of that. And we'll update you if we decide to make changes, but also are open to feedback of how that feels.
Yeah. And our membership tiers over there start as low as $4 on patreon.com/acesupyoursleeve-podcast. So if you want to join us, you want the bonus content, it's easier than ever to get it. And with the different tiers too, there's a lot of interesting bonus perks that you can get.
We're little freaks. We want to share a little freakiness with you.
Yes. Yeah, so we're going to go over to Upping the Ante. We're going to talk more about successful teens, what that looked like for us as teens, what expectations were tough for us, and generally how we handled our teen years, which will be a recurring theme over the next 2 episodes.
Absolutely. You can expect new episodes weekly on Tuesdays. You can find Kate at Cryptid Learns and me at Radical Insights Consulting on Facebook or Instagram. You can add a .com to each of those for our websites. You can follow the podcast on Facebook or Instagram at Aces Up Your Sleeve Pod, so you can interact with us and see when new episodes release. If you have any questions for us, visit neurokink.org/AUYS and send it our way, and we'll see you over on Upping the Ante.